Hi, it's Gemma. This episode comes with a warning of strong language, honest opinions, and some topics that you might find upsetting. But that's why you love us. We can't help but overshare. Are you ready for some oversharing?
Because oops, we did it again. What did you actually say?
Hi, it's Gemma.
Okay. I completely forgot that.
Okay, I'll just go.
No, it's fine, I'll do it. I can do it.
Go.
Hi, it's Lauren.
And it's Gemma.
I didn't like that.
And you're
fine, keep it.
Keep it. And you're listening to the Oops, We Overshared Again podcast.
Welcome back.
So today we are going to be talking about something which a lot of us probably don't even realize that we do, and that is connecting to our inner child and the importance of that. And Lauren and I were actually having a chat about our younger self, things that we would say to her, things maybe that we wish that we could tell her, apart from the lottery numbers. That would be a good one, but other things as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we thought we would do a little podcast about that.
Yeah, I feel like I've got a lot to say this time around.
Like, definitely. So, strap in. It's going to be a good one.
It is. You're going to get to know us quite a lot, I feel like, in this.
I reckon, yeah. I mean, the thing as well, so for those of you that aren't aware, I am, Lauren and I are both actually certified coaches, although Lauren, you do business. I actually help people with anxiety, and I do a lot of stuff with inner child anyway, and on myself, because not a lot of people know this, but when I say not a lot of people, I think more people do now, but when things happen to us as kids, even stuff that we wouldn't necessarily deem to be traumatic, it does have an impact and a knock-on effect on us as we get older. And I found that when we go back to that inner child, we can heal that a lot quicker. And plus it can actually be quite fun. Yeah.
I think it's something that both of us, separate from like the coaching and things like that, it's something that both of us have obviously explored separately anyway, a little bit, in the sense that we're both fairly anxious people and are both very aware that we I feel like fairly anxious was underplaying it a little bit, but it kind of I think we're both very aware as well of the fact that like a lot of that is because of stuff that's happened. So I think we're probably quite maybe in tune with our younger self.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Maybe as
100%,
well.
100%. And I think the thing is, there are times, I think anyway, that now through doing the work I've done, that I can almost have a reaction to something, like a trigger, or I find myself normally, if I feel like I'm overreacting to something, and you can almost sort of pinpoint, right, well, I'm not acting like a grown-ass woman in her 30s right now. I'm acting like a petulant teenager. And it's almost then you need to connect to that younger version of yourself.
Do you know what's really interesting? My voice changes when I do it.
That's really a good sign though.
So much though, and it's like way younger than teenager, but I do it all the time, and especially if I'm being like needy or which I am anyway, like I'll fully admit I'm quite a needy person, but like if I'm being needy or dramatic about something or anything like that. Literally last night we were sat on the sofa and I said something to Steve and he was like on his phone and he didn't answer me, and I went, why don't you love me?
Yes.
And
100%.
he was like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, why don't you love me? And I go into like toddler mode.
Yeah.
And it's I literally, it comes out like that through my voice as well, which is interesting.
I do the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people do.
Yeah. And another thing is when I get overtired and Ben's like, I have two toddlers to deal with.
Yeah.
Overtired silly beggars from the 2-year-old toddler and the grown-ass woman toddler.
See, when I get overtired, I tend to go more, instead of like whiny kind of that kind of part of me, I tend to go more like we've just given a toddler a can of Coke. I tend to go more like absolutely mental, and I start like Morris dancing in the lounge.
Yes.
Like, just being like a complete like nut and just walking around going And I walk in with like my trousers up past my boobs, and I'm like,
Lauren, I do the exact same thing. I'm not even joking. I wish Ben was here right now to witness this. When he listens to this podcast, he's going to be like, oh my God, there's 2 of them. I do the same thing, literally.
But yeah,
oh my God.
It's good to be childish.
It is. But this is the thing, right? So I think connecting to our younger self, because when we was talking about doing this episode, we were talking about like things we would say to our younger self, weren't we? And whilst that is good, and there are lots of things that we would love to say to her, I mean, if we did have a time machine, that would be great. But, you know, you don't need that to connect your inner child. But I think there are ways as well, not just the getting deep and the you need to know this, you need to know that, it's not your fault and all that sort of stuff, which is really important, is good. But also it's the fun stuff like blowing bubbles. I mean, who doesn't love bubbles? Like if you don't like bubbles.
I got a bubble machine for my 18th birthday party.
Did you actually?
I got it from the Early Learning Centre. I had a house party. We had a DJ in our house.
Did you?
We had 2 portaloos in the back garden and a bubble machine. I mean, Mum was like, what do you want for your 18th birthday? I was like, a bubble machine, obviously. What else would I want?
Okay, so just set the tone for me on this one real quick. Was it anything else? Just 2 portaloos and a bubble machine?
Outside and a marquee because it was raining. It was November.
Oh, okay, cool.
But then inside, so we had a salon in our house because Mum was a hairdresser. So in the salon, we had a DJ, like proper decks set up, lights, and Dizzy Rascal was playing. Like we're in that kind of era.
Actual Dizzy Rascal.
Not him there, like on the music, I mean. Dizzy Rascal wasn't there.
Hey, jeez.
And it was
that Cardle, Dizzy Rascal, you know them all.
And the flipping, it was raining outside and all the girls were wearing heels and it was tiled floors. So as you can imagine, it was like absolute chaos because everybody
on ice,
like falling over. But yeah, it was really fun. And then this is totally random, but I'll tell you the story. There was this guy there who I went to school with, didn't know, like he was like a friend of a friend kind of thing, like didn't know him particularly well, would say hi to him, was really drunk, obviously got a bit cocky, genuinely like a really nice person most of the time. I think he was just drunk and trying to be funny. Didn't know who my stepdad was and walked up to him and said possibly the worst thing that you could say to my stepdad ever. Walked up to him and said, oh God, no wonder Lauren's such a slut, have you seen her mum? You literally just offended his stepdaughter and his wife in one sentence. And it was amazing. And my stepdad ended up like chasing him down the street. I think he got away. But he stole beer on the way out. I was like, the cheek of it.
The thing with that is, I mean, I know you say he's normally a nice guy. Guy sounds like a wanker. But
he does,
also,
yeah.
But also, the thing that makes me like what you're thinking is you're at a house party for a teenage girl. Oh, there's a dad age looking man over there. Let's go and insult the host and her mum to the dad age looking man over there.
I know.
Were there many dad age looking men there?
I mean, my family was there. So there was like, my actual dad was there and my nan was there. I mean, obviously she doesn't look like my dad.
No.
There was a few like older people.
If you're looking at this situation, if you've got, you know, kids that are 18 and men that are like in their like 40s, 50s sort of age bracket, and there are only say maybe 3 dad aged men.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think that they are going to be directly linked to you or your mum.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
not only is he a wanker, apparently also thick as shit.
Yeah, not clever. I will give you that. He is not a clever man.
No, definitely not. I mean,
but yeah, it was a great party, and the bubbles I feel like made it. That was the point. I loved the bubbles. It was very important, the bubbles, but the bubble machine did break that night because somebody threw it over the fence and it smashed. So that was the end of that.
Your friends need to learn some manners.
Honestly, like, I mean, I don't remember a house party where something didn't go wrong when we were that age. It's just amazing that obviously my family was in the house, I don't know who it was, I honestly, and I don't even know if it was an accident, to be honest. It's just hard for it to have been an accident, but things were getting broken on accident as well, and that's fine. Like our light shade got broken, but it's because somebody slipped and they grabbed it, like that sort of thing, like absolutely fine. But yeah, it was slightly chaotic, but it was also really fun. We used to have a lot of house parties when I was a kid. My mum used to have loads. Yeah, but anyway,
love that a lot.
But yeah, but yes, I'm all for connecting with bubbles, etc. And as I say, like for you, and I actually think when you're a teenager, you do that the least because you want to be cool, right?
Yeah.
So actually for me to have a bubble machine at my 18th birthday party, I feel like was quite a cool thing for me to do. In that I do that now, but looking back, I'm surprised that I did it when I was 18.
There were like really weird little trends though when I was a kid, like when I was a teenager. I was in the army cadets, and I remember there was like a group of girls, like all like, so everyone's teenagers there, right? And they used to suck dummies.
Strange, isn't it?
But that was a thing, like for a while, like where like teenage girls would have dummies, and now I'm a bit like, why would you do that?
Do you know what's interesting? I think I can see very clearly, you know, like when you're a young teenager and you haven't like kind of grasped what maybe is cool isn't cool, and then you go through that like middle period of like 14, 15, 16 where you're like, I have to be cool, and then you kind of come back out of it. I can pinpoint exactly when that is through Harry Potter films, which I know sounds really weird, but all the Harry Potter films came out in November, which is when my birthday is. And I know the first two and the last two better than the entire middle section, because that's when I went through that period of
Harry wasn't cool for you then, was he?
Yeah, because I went to go and see the first and the second one for my birthday, but I was 12 and 13. And then I obviously went through that period. And then by the time the last two came out, I was back at like, who cares? Like it is cool again. And it's interesting how that happens. And I'm still really fuzzy on those middle films. Like I've seen them, but I can't really remember which one's which or anything like that. And it's because I didn't experience them at the time. And it's it's interesting how that happens. But I think most people go through that.
Oh, absolutely. But do you know that I think the thing is as well, when we're kid, like I think when we're like young, like, you know, like preschool age, they say, don't they, that's like when we're like our formative years, and they're like, you know, when we the beliefs that we hold now as adults come from this, you know, the first 7 years or something like that is meant to be like the most important. And absolutely totally agree with that. However, there are so many things I look back now and think, Jesus, how did you do all that? Like, how did you put up with all the things you put up with? How did you cope with as much as you did at like 14, 15, 16? Because I think back to myself now and I'm like, I would legit have a full-on breakdown.
For me, in that perspective of being kind of 13, 14, in like when awful things happened, I think I was in a really nice state that I think every teenager goes through, where I'm like half lucky that that's when it happened, where I was a child, but I didn't feel like a child. I felt like an adult. But I also wasn't an adult enough to understand the gravity of some of the situations. So I almost kind of just like coasted through it without even realizing anything was happening, because I was like in this kind of like middle ground of feeling like an adult, but not really being one, but also because I wasn't one, I didn't really understand. And it like, I don't know, I think that's maybe like how I coped with a lot of bad stuff. And I cope less now because I understand the gravity of situations. And now a lot of the stuff, as you know, like a lot of the stuff that happened back then bothers me much more so now than it did then.
I'm exactly the same. And actually that's a really good way of putting it, isn't it? It's the fact that, like you say, like at the time you're like, yeah, but I'm a grown up, so obviously I am 14, I am basically a grown-ass woman. You're really not, Gemma.
I mean, I had conversations with friends about things that had happened, and it was very much on this thing happened rather than these awful things happened to me, you know? Like it was a very different perspective about some of the things that happened, even with my dad's situation and me and my dad's relationship breaking down. Like it was very much fuck him. fuck it, like fuck him, fuck it, fuck all of it. Whereas now it bothers me a lot more so than it did then, because I'm very aware now as like an adult that he could die, or any like and we could have not sorted things out, or do you know what I mean, or just like all these different like things that are like much more, I guess I understand like the real kind of part of it. And I also now know that it went on for a really long time, which I didn't know then. Like I didn't know that it wasn't like just a thing that happened and then we all got over it. Whereas now kind of talking like 15, 16 years down the line, it's, I guess I have a bit more perspective in that sense as well.
Yeah. It's weird though, isn't it, as well, how I think with things like that, often something happens, and I don't know, for me as well, I feel like even when things happen in the moment, it can be really, really overwhelming, but you almost go into this, even if you don't think it's necessarily as bad as what it is, if you know what I'm saying. But I think then as time goes on and the dust settles, it's when the dust settles and we think that life is going good, that then something will come back, and like a memory or something will trigger us, and we're like, what? Why has that come up now? Like it happened, like you say, like 15 years ago. But I think as well with things like that, almost stuff waits for us to be ready to deal with it.
I also think there's a lot to be said for you can't like, you do have like a cap of what you can actually deal with in that moment, and anything else that comes in, like the example that I think of, and it's something I feel guilty for a lot, even though I don't think I could have helped it, is when we lost the baby, when we lost our pregnancy, my granddad passed away less than a week afterwards. And I didn't get upset once about the passing of my granddad, and it wasn't because I didn't care about my granddad, but like I was already grieving something, and I didn't have the space to even consider that there was something else there. Do you know what I mean? Like it was like, I'm already at my max, you can't add something else on top of it. And because the baby got there first, that was the thing that was the thing I was dealing with. And if it had happened in reverse, maybe it would have been granddad and not the baby. But I think you do reach like a cap, and you can't deal with anything else until you kind of have dealt with that thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you shut down, didn't you?
Yeah, like completely. Yeah. So what are some things that you would say to your younger self, do you think?
So the thing with me when I was a kid was I've had a very, very difficult relationship with food, like for as long as I can remember. And there were some things when I was younger that I used to get bullied at school for being fat. I look back now, I weren't fat at all, not even in the bloody slightest. But then because of that, I went through a really and other things, to be fair. It wasn't just the kids at school. There was things that was happening at home for me and everything else. But I used to either starve myself, or I would allow myself to eat, and then I would either make myself sick or take laxatives or something to get rid of it. So basically, I had this super duper unhealthy relationship with food because I felt this need to lose weight and to control what I was eating. And it all stems down to feeling like I wasn't worthy of love or success, or, you know, being able to do what I wanted to do in life because I was too fat. And that would be one of the main things, just to because I mean, at 14, like 13, I didn't start my periods till I was 14. So it's quite a late bloomer compared to my friends. And I went from the start of the year when I was 14, I didn't used to wear a bra because I didn't have any boobs. Like I hadn't started my periods. I was like, I was a little girl still. Used to play with Barbies. Like I was still very young, a young 14-year-old. And then by the end of that year, I was 34 double D bra. Like I'd like blossomed out of nowhere, literally. Had like a very curvaceous figure all of a sudden, and had matured loads. I started getting highlights in my hair, thought I was like literally such a grown up. And with that came its own complications, I then started getting attention that I didn't know how to process, and it put me in some really dangerous situations. But I think that if I, as that child, had better self-worth and better understanding of my worth as a person, not on how my body looked, I think that those situations would have ended a lot differently for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I wonder though, and this is a thought that I've had with kind of the things that I would say to myself as well. If you had the ability to go back and say anything to her, do you think she'd listen to you? Because I don't know if I would have. I don't know if I
Yeah,
would have
I know what you
understood
mean.
it enough to actually kind of process it and go, oh, okay, you're right. Let's take my life in this direction. I don't know if I would have. I think I'd have been, no, this is where I'm at. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, do you know though, I had the awareness already. I was 13. How old are you in year 7? You're 13 or 12?
You turn 12.
Right. So yeah, year 7, they did a public speaking competition at school.
Mm-hmm.
And I did my public speaking on eating disorders, ironically, and how like our perception of our bodies is like really, I was very ahead of my time, to be honest, because I had this full-on speech. I took a Barbie in with me, and the thing that really prompted me as a child was my mum used to stand in front. My mum was very, very slim. My mum used to stand in front of a mirror and like grab this like invisible fat and be like, oh, I'm disgusting, oh, I'm fat, and that's what I grew up seeing. And I never forget, one of my sisters said to me, oh, I don't love you because you're fat. And she like actually used to say that to me, like, I don't love you because you're fat. And then if I lost weight, she'd be like, oh, I love you now because you've lost weight. I would like to point out I wasn't, I look back on photos of me now and I'm like, what was the problem? What was the problem? Like, seriously, I wish I was that fat now. But yeah, so I think that if I had had somebody, me as a teenager, if I'd had someone that I could have looked up to that was positive about their body, that was, you know, comfortable in their own skin, or if I could have been that role model for myself, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I probably would have listened. And I think that it would have given me more confidence in myself. Obviously, everything happened for a reason, and I'm grateful for the journey that I've had because it's led me to where I am now. But I would love, and that is something I work on with my own self, because I get triggered even now, and I catch myself. I said this to you the other day, and I'll have like a bit of a down day, and I'll catch myself in the mirror, and I'll be like, "Oh, you're disgusting."
Yeah.
But it's the way I'm talking as well. I'm like, "Oh, sassy 14-year-old Gemma's come out to play." Like, "Oh, what are you even wearing?" Like, and it's I suppose it's connecting to that part of me, rather than, as much as I would love to have a time machine because that would just be awesome, but it's more trying to reconnect and heal that little version of me that's in there, rather than trying to make someone listen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think when you're a child as well, I think you just if you're anything but what everybody else is, you've got a problem, right? So if you were like slightly bigger than the other girls that you hung around with, but let's be honest, a lot of girls of kind of 12, 13, 14 are tiny. And then you've got somebody that's maybe even just slightly bigger, even if they're not anyway big. It's just that comparison. Because I mean, I've never been overweight, I would say, but I've had that in that my body hasn't changed since I was 12 years old. Like literally I could wear my 12-year-old clothes right now. My boobs were a D, my hips were the size they are. I'm exactly the same height. I'm 5'7", so I was a tall 12-year-old.
Yeah.
I haven't changed. I had my boobs by the time I was in year 6 as a D. So, and I started my period the week after I started year 7. So I was an adult with all these girls that were children. And so I had that same thing of, because I've got like a big bum and big like thighs, like my thighs have always been the biggest part of my body. And then you've got other girls whose legs are the same width the whole way up.
Yeah.
And so I definitely had that. And I remember sitting there at like swimming lessons and like looking at my legs and thinking, oh, and like poking them. And even now, if like Steve like touches, like pokes me, or it hits me in the leg, I'm like, oh, stop poking my like fat legs. And I'm like completely aware that my legs aren't fat, but when you're the only one that looks different, you have that anyway. And I think you just want to be like everyone else. And it's really hard when you aren't, and you can't appreciate that until you're older, I think, which is really tricky.
Absolutely. And I think, do you know what though, it's also when you're in that situation and you are different, be it like for whatever reason, kids are cruel.
Yeah.
And we don't need any help. Like, we're cruel enough to ourselves. Like, just go and be cruel over there to yourself, like, because you know I'm doing a pretty good job of bullying myself without you needing to interrupt me. And I think that's the problem, isn't it? It's like we talk poorly of ourselves as well. I speak from my experience, but I would talk poorly of myself, but then that would be reaffirmed to me by things that my sister would say, or things that my mum would say, or my stepdad, or I'd go to school and things that kids at school would say, or things you see on television. And for me, that was why a lot of my worth, and I think this is probably true for a lot of people, regardless of age or gender, but a lot of my worth, most of it, all of it, I would even say, was tied to the way I looked. And that would be what I would want my younger self to know, that, and it's something I still struggle with a little bit. I mean, we're going to talk about this another time, but the fact that would be, if I could teach her anything, if I could show her anything, it's that it doesn't actually matter.
I think once you can, I know it's easier said than done, and I do say this with a pinch of salt, but I think once you start to really kind of stand strong in those things as well, no matter how old you are, it just changes how everybody else treats you as well, because it is such a, like, when you feel crap about yourself, like I remember one of my earliest experience in terms of the way I was in year 6, and I remember this boy shouting across the playground, "Lauren's stuffed tissue down her bra," or something like that, because I had boobs. And I remember being like really embarrassed and like really like, no, I haven't got boobs, like almost like like pinning them down.
Yeah.
But then by the time I was in year 8, I figured out that my boobs were way bigger than anyone else's at that point, because nobody had any and I was a D. So they were like, even though I wasn't wearing like proper like bras that were maybe making the most of that, they were still a D, so I couldn't really hide them. And I was skinny as well, so they were kind of like really stuck out.
Yeah.
But I realized that I couldn't hide it, and so by the end of year 8, my nickname was Big D at school, and I absolutely owned it. I was like, yeah, that's me. I'm the one with tits. You lot suck. You haven't got any.
I love that. Yeah.
You fucking wish you had my tits. Like, that's how I changed the narrative, and it actually did me so many favors. Don't get me wrong, it was to mask other insecurities, probably. Like, I had 2 moles on my face that I grew up absolutely hating and didn't have removed till I was 26, but I was always super, super conscious of them. But it does, once you, and everybody then was a bit like, oh, can't wait till my boobs grow. And it does change it when you have that, when you approach it with that confidence. I think other people kind of see it, but it is harder said than done. I'm not making out like that's dead easy.
No, that's good though. I don't know whether to start calling you Big D or stick to Loz Haley. I mean, there's so many nicknames now to give you.
There is. I was lip gloss Loz for a while at school.
Lip gloss Loz.
I was. Quite the
name. There is a mouthful.
I know. But yeah, I think it's so hard when you've got something that you feel self-conscious about, and whatever it is, it's then your biggest feature to you, because it's the only thing anybody else can see. It's not, it's I mean, it is different in that it's a very short-term thing, what I'm about to say, but it's no different than when you've got like a spot on your face and everybody else is like, what are you talking about? I can't even see it. But to you, it's like it takes up your entire face.
Absolutely.
Because it's all you can see. And I think whenever you're insecure about your weight, the moles on my face, my big thighs, do you know what I mean? Whatever it is, a laugh that you have that you find really annoying, it could be literally anything. It's then you think it's the only thing that they can see.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I mean, this has been quite deep, but you know, we're here to overshare, and oversharing is what we're doing.
I don't mind.
Neither do I. I hope the listeners don't mind. We would love to hear your stories though about school and stuff.
Yeah.
Fellow listeners, and you can send us voice notes and we will perhaps feature you.
We probably will.
I mean, we almost definitely will, so just keep that in mind.
If you message us and you don't want us to, just let us know and we won't.
Yeah, say it first. Yeah. Not after before you put it in a podcast. Some fun ways though to kind of be on a bit of a lighter note to connect to your inner child. What are your favourite ways?
I watch a lot of old movies and TV programs from being a child. Like, as you know, at the moment, I'm binge watching Charmed, which I'm absolutely loving.
Yeah.
Just a proper 90s, early 2000s classic. I love watching Disney films. I watched the Lizzie McGuire movie literally last weekend. Like, I like any... I'm such a sucker for like old films, but like not old, but like, you know what I mean? Like old for us, like being a child kind of films.
Yeah.
I would rather watch those any day of the week than watch a normal film. So yeah, I do a lot of that, I guess. Every now and again, if I feel like I want to be more kind of childish, that's when I kind of like, it's literally open right now, I go into my art drawer and I like will draw something or something like that, which is what I always did as a kid. I actually have I'm swearing at you now, but I literally have a lump on my finger from where I used to draw all the time as a kid.
I
mean, I used to hold my pen.
Your little drawing lump.
I used to actually sleepwalk and draw when I was a child. Mum used to find me drawing pictures while I was asleep.
On the wall.
Like the demon I am. Charmed.
Big D.
yeah, big demon. Oh my god, it all links back together. I'm watching Charmed, I'm Big D, like demon. But yeah, I get creative, I guess, when I want to feel like a child, because that's what I used to do. Sometimes we'll sing a song. I was such a like dance, sing in front of the mirror
same
kid, and I know like the words to a lot of songs just from like doing that. So yeah, I'll do that. I had those like wavy mirrors, you know which ones I mean, where you have like
yes, yeah, nice.
Used to sing and dance in front of those a lot of times, so I'll do that still. I quite often will sing a song and have a dance before I get on coaching calls even. Like I just I like having a
pumps
dance.
Up the energy.
It does. I do it less so in this house though than I used to in my flat, and I think it's because I feel more visible because I'm like not up high. Does that make sense? Because
it does. Just own it though. Just own it.
I think I need to, but I was in a second floor flat before, so I think I used to just feel a little bit less like, I don't know, on show.
Just go for it. Just shake it out.
Speaking of a lot more, but I'm going to let you say yours first.
I was going to say, speaking of random television shows, I was a little bit too old for Hannah Montana first time around, but my sisters used to watch it. I used to watch it a bit anyway. I binge watched that recently.
Do you know what I would love to watch? I would love to watch That's So Raven from the start. I used to watch that. You just did her face when you did that. You know her like where she goes like this and then she sees I loved that show, and I would like to. I think I was a bit too old for Hannah Montana as well.
Yeah, I remember watching the first couple of seasons, but anyway, I watched the whole thing recently, Disney Plus.
I love that. I watched, and it isn't even from when we were kids, in lockdown, I watched, is it called The Worst Witch? I don't know, it's on BBC and it's
okay, I've not seen the television show, but I loved those books when I was a kid.
Mildred
Hubble.
Yeah, that's it. I watched the 2 or 3 seasons in lockdown, and it's obviously like a recent kids program, but I love it. Like I'm so.
No, what I did used to love though as a kid. Do you remember Elizabeth's Nose?
I do, with the penny. Is that that
one? You rub the nose.
I do remember that.
That was very good.
Yeah, I love all of that stuff.
Do you know, little fun fact for you? So we had Sky when I was a kid. Felt very privileged for that because, you know, felt super bougie because we had it. And I used to come in from school and watch Disney Channel. And they used to do these calling competitions. I won 3 times.
Amazing.
I mean, I used to literally sit there with the phone, dial it till I got through. But one of the prizes I won was like this Disney Channel goodie bag with a camera, like loads. It was like a pretty decent prize. Yeah, I won 3 times. That I can't remember what the other 2 prizes were, but I did have loads of these Disney Channel goodie bag things that the prizes come in.
Nice. I remember them doing the casting for, because it was through, I think it was through CBBC, but they were doing the casting for S Club Juniors. And I remember them doing it, but I was too young. You had to be 13, and I was like 11 or 12.
I was not too young.
Did you do it?
I did.
Did you? I love that.
But let me tell you, I was like so convinced that I was that, you know, that there was no alternative. I was gonna be, obviously, like, why would there be any alternative? And I remember my nan going to me, well, don't get your hopes up. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, don't get your hopes up in case you know. I was like, they're not hopes now. I'm gonna be in it, like, as if there was no alternative. And I was so like steadfast in my why would you even say that? Like, obviously, spoiler alert, I was not part of Escom Juniors.
I really thought I was going to be, but I was in a lot of bands when I was at school with like singing. So we actually had, I don't know whatever happened to them, but they used to, there was a band. They weren't, I never heard of them outside of this context. They were called Tommy, and it was a group of 4 women, I think. I say women, they were probably like 16-ish. And they were quite tomboys, which is why I'm assuming they were called Tommy, actually. No,
okay, yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
Brain. But I was in year 6, and they were supporting Blazing Squad, and they, for some random reason, came in and performed their single in our assembly. And it was like a full-blown like 90s dance choreographed situation. And after that, we decided we were going to make our own band. We performed in front of the assembly, our band. I can still remember the song. There was a few songs, but one of ours was like, going out tonight, it's gonna be all right, gonna really boogie on the dance floor, gonna sing my song, gonna dance along, gonna really keep it real. That's our song.
I love that.
Cracking song.
Maybe release that.
I might. But I so yeah,
I would also like to point out that when we release this episode, I definitely want that song to be featured in like the preview.
That's fine, we can do that. We can make that happen. But yeah, no, I was definitely going to be in a band, still might.
Do you play any instruments?
Absolutely not. I'd love to. Do you?
Used to dabble with a guitar. I had a bass at one point.
I love the idea of it. I don't think in practice I'm
more shy in vocals, as do you apparently. Should we start a band?
Let's just ditch the podcast.
Is X Factor still a thing? Should we go on that?
None of the episodes have gone out yet. We could just scrap this. Just start a band instead.
I would like to point out this is the kind of shit that the people have come for, not the deep heavy shit we did at the start.
Yeah, well, you get a bit of both here. We're very multi-dimensional human beings, okay? You take all of us. We have facets. But no, the reason I wanted to leave one of my hobbies is because, or one of the things that makes me feel like a child, is because one of the hobbies I've been doing makes me feel like a child.
Well, let's be having it.
So I've got nothing to show you for this time, but I can put pictures up. I have been trying. So as you know, I'm not particularly a sportswoman. Try as I might, but I would like something that I actually genuinely enjoy doing that keeps me fit, right? Because I've never found that thing, as we have established. So I have tried with no success, but I still quite enjoyed it. Basically skipping, but like with tricks and stuff. And obviously skipping, look at you laughing. I hope you spill that down you. But obviously I can't, the problem I have is that I can't skip even on a basic level.
I love how you're like skipping but with tricks.
Well, it's called jump rope. It's an actual thing.
Okay, go on.
Okay, there's a person that I follow, right? This is where it's all started. I'm going to give you her username. In fact, I'm going to get you, have you got your phone right? Go on your phone right now.
Yeah.
So there's this person whose name I can't remember, except the fact that she's also called Lauren. Hang on. She's called Lauren. I can't find her. Right, she's called Lauren.jumps on Instagram. Go and find her. She is a jump rope person, and she started at the beginning of lockdown to give herself something to do. And I was like, I want to be able to do this. So I bought a jump rope skipping rope to give it a go. My problem is that I feel like a knob even just in my garden, because I feel like people are watching me.
Oh, I love this one.
She's so clever, isn't she? Everybody go follow Lauren.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just stopped. She's so clever. She's the blonde one. And
should we make a rule? Last week jumping.
Should we get her on the pod?
Yeah, do it.
She couldn't skip at the beginning of 2020 lockdown, and she's obviously learned how to do so, and it like gave her something to do during lockdown.
Okay, so I mean, this is good. She got a twin.
No, I think it's both her. It's editing.
Oh,
She had a beautiful wedding, by the way.
she's so clever.
She's very clever. So I was like, I'm going to give this a go. And I'll be honest, I'm not great at it anyway, but then also, why would I be first time doing it? But I think my problem is...
Do we not have a video of you doing it?
We've got photos for
Okay.
now. But because I'm so aware of people watching, and it's not something you can do in the house because it would hit the ceiling, I think it makes me fall more often. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm like almost like bracing myself to do it. So I feel like that's holding me back, and it's something I need to get over. But that's generally like a recurring issue with exercise for me, that I struggle to do it in front of anybody at all. So I need to get over that in order to be able to do this. But I think it's quite fun, and I want to be able to do it. It's hard work. Like,
well, I mean, great job for trying and for starting.
Exactly.
I feel like we need to see the goods.
I'll try.
But I love this for you.
Maybe I'll report back. Maybe I'll keep practicing, and we'll see if I can get this one as a good one.
I think I've got good hopes for it.
I'll have an Instagram called Lauren.jumps too.
I mean, you've got a lot of Instagrams, so
I don't need any more Instagram pages. I have 4 at the moment, and I need to stop.
Literally.
Honestly insane. But yeah, that's been my hobby this last week, and it's been a lot.
Love that for you.
Yeah.
And as always, if anyone listening would like to suggest a hobby for Lauren to try, you can do that either by DMing us, voice noting us.
Yeah.
And I will make sure that Lauren can't dismiss any ones that she doesn't want to do.
Can I just say, on another note, if there's anything ridiculous that you'd like Gemma to do, also feel free to...
This is not my segment.
Also feel free to send them in. Just saying.
Double points if it's something that me and Lauren could do together.
Oh my God, we could recreate that reel.
That's what I was showing you for. I mean,
my God, that would be hilarious. We could do it just with the fuck ups. It would be amazing. Just me and you trying to like get over the rope.
Literally.
But yeah, so it linked in quite nicely, that, because it's kind of like a childhood thing, but stepping it up a notch.
Yeah, love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and listening to our episode.
Well, you were talking to me then. I was like, you're very welcome.
Well, I mean, thank you for joining me as well. We've loved having you here. If you've skipped to the end of this and not listened to the whole thing, it does get lighter after the heavy bit at the start.
It does.
Yeah, it does.
You get a mix with us. That's what you sign up for, I'm afraid.
I mean, that is the beauty of oversharing, if not nothing else.
We're gonna space out the deep with just pure funny. You know, it'll be fine.
Bit of this, bit of that. Why not?
Exactly. But yeah, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
We will. Have a great week.
Goodbye, all.
And to all, goodbye.
And to all, a good night. Is that a Christmas carol?
I don't know.
I think it might be. Anyway, bye.
Bye.